Okay, so I wanted to introduce to you the value assignment, and this has a couple different parts, and I want to make sure we go over everything. And I've made some videos for you to watch for the value scales and things like that. There's also, of course, handouts there. The degree of lightness to darkness when you're using color, but in the way we're using it, it's also applied to tones such as black and white. And so that's why value and tone are basically interchangeable in as far as elements of design go. So, and it's really up to the artist and what they're going to do with this range of tones, and if they want to show a large range of tones or something less. And there's good and beautiful in both, right? So it's something that we're going to begin to play with. And again, this idea of value will follow you through your other classes as well. So this is going to come up again and again. MC Escher, who is the artist who did this print, is very creative. He's a printmaker, and he does these wonderful kind of trick of the eye art pieces that are just really quite beautiful. And so you can see where it has a very kind of flat two-dimensional space. It doesn't have any value. It's all very light, just with a dark outline of the shirt and cuff. Where when he goes into animate and show value and weight of the hand, the tonal range is really quite broad. It's got highlights, it's got middle tones, and it's got shadows. And so highlights, mid, and dark. So it's got a nice range. This is another lino cut, or another print that I found by Mr. Whitman. And I found this online, and this has a very high contrast. Although if you squint at it, you know, there are some mid-grays in there. Squinting really, it does a great job. I know you guys are going to think I'm crazy, but it does a great job of kind of blurring all the values, and you can kind of see where they start to separate. But this, I think, is just some beautiful pattern and marks that are creating the values. Really quite a beautiful piece. Now, in photography, especially, of course, black and white photography, we are always thinking about value. And this is a really good example here, because value is created by the light source. How is light affecting the thing you're drawing or the thing you're photographing? And that's, you know, very evident here. Beautiful. And now this has a lower range. Like there's a lot of dark and there's a lot of white, and really the mid-tone is the other value. So there's not a huge range, but you have all three. This is a fork. And this is the famous Ansel Adams, who was so interested in getting all the values. He created this whole new system of developing and printing his images. So there's a ton of range quality between the highlight and the low light here. It's just really quite beautiful. Okay, so the first thing that you will do is you're going to do some value scales, and you will put the final on Bristol. And I have a video, and I do mine in my sketchbook just because, but you will do yours on Bristol. Now, some people have taken a piece of Bristol to do all this and then cut it out and paste it on a clean sheet of Bristol. That's kind of up to you, or you can go directly towards it. If you go directly on a piece of Bristol, please try to keep it as neat as possible. So value scales are grids which show from light to dark. And you can use, basically, for two of them, you're going to use a pencil. And one you can do in a blend where you just use the side of the pencil and it's a gradual transition. Or you could do hatching, which are lines that go in only one direction. Cross-hatching, the lines can go in multiple directions, kind of crossing over each other. And then the stippling, or what's called pointillism, is just dots, right? So the more dots you get and the closer the dots get together, the darker. And it's the same with the lines. There also is a pressure aspect of it. The harder you push, the darker it gets as well. So these are just different examples of what I'm looking for. You will do this. Now, ignore this ribbon down here because I've changed that to a sketchbook assignment where you guys will draw a circle. Okay, so there's another video that will show you that. So what you're going to do is you're going to have 1 or 2 of pencil, 1 of charcoal, and then 2 rows of acrylic. And on your first row of acrylic, it's 2 by 2 inch squares painted from light to dark. Then on the second one, that's the same background, you will also paint an 1 inch by 7 of mid-gray. And these are the mid-gray. It's a 7 box kind of grid. So the middle one would be the middle gray. So you get middle gray by mixing equal parts of white and black. Okay. And my video shows how to do this. So it shouldn't be a problem. These are just other examples that people have done. Again, ignore that shape at the bottom. You know what's wrong? Whoops. Do you know what's wrong with this one? Your mid-gray, the square should be the same value. It should kind of blend into the back. This one's too dark, right? So this is, instead of doing the ribbon or whatever kind of design at the bottom, I want you guys to, in your sketchbook, draw a circle and determine where your light is hitting the circle or ball, and then draw your shadows, your highlights, the core, and the cast shadow. Okay, so again, there's a video that describes this, and this is going to go in your sketchbook. Okay, so those are kind of both exercises. They're not really the final piece, and trust me, you'll probably do a lot more of these throughout your career. And when I was doing them for the video for this section, I was thinking to myself, I haven't done this in a long time. Because once you're out of school, you stop doing it very much, but it's good practice. So the other thing we're going to do is we're going to make a value design. And it's going to, and this is a computer version of what we're going to do. But you can follow the exact dimensions, which I'm asking you to do a 10 by 10 square that you divide into 2.5 by 2.5 inch squares. Okay, then once you have those squares, you will draw 3 straight lines across. So if you see that first one, here's the second one, and here's the third. Okay, so but they can really, what you're trying to do is cross as many different boxes as you can. After you've done the straight lines, then I want you to add some curls, some curved lines. And again, make sure you cross every box. It wouldn't hurt to put a little curved line in this one, like they have in here. It doesn't really matter how many. But then what you will do is go into each little section, even how small or how big, and go from light to dark or dark to light, and just keep changing that up. So you end up with something like this. Now this is a good example of what they did, but they did it a little bit differently. They are using larger boxes, and each one is a little bit different. But again, you know, think of every time there's a transition or a line or a curved shape to change the direction of the value. This again is not exactly the same as our assignment, but it's a similar effect. So you can use pencil, you can use charcoal, you can use graphite, really kind of anything on this. Again, this is a similar exercise, but not exactly the same. I would like to see some straight and curved lines. here's another ink drawing of someone doing kind of the similar thing, but again, it's a bit different. If you want, you can go larger than the 10 by 10. And if you do the 10 by 10, you can just float that on a piece of 11 by 14 Bristol. It doesn't necessarily have to be exactly in the middle. It could be at the bottom or the top, or you can just kind of float it somewhere in the Bristol, leaving a nice border around the whole thing. Okay. So in your sketchbook, you're doing one big circle that's shaded really specifically. Another sketchbook assignment is drawing 100 circles with a sense of where the light is coming from. Okay, so here are some examples that students have done. So this doesn't have to be done in one sitting. The first time you can kind of arrange the circles, and then you could keep going back and coloring them in. This is charcoal. If you want to put another piece of paper on top again so it doesn't smudge, or if you have fixative or hairspray, you can prevent it from sponging quite so much. Sometimes I put tissue in there. That can get kind of messy too, or you could do pencils. This student did pencils. They did okay. Their shadows are a little bit crazy. This is a little bit more flat, but I still like the values that they're playing with these circles. Okay. Also, I wanted to talk about the pattern portraits. This one is Justin Timberlake, and you are, in addition to creating lines, those lines that you're drawing on your pattern portrait are showing value, right? So how thick the lines are, what kind of shape they make, how thin or how heavy you're pressing, that all dictates the tonal range. And so a really successful pattern portrait has a really nice tonal range. And I think this person did really well. This is from a few years ago. And this one too is a pretty cool one. And, again, look at the values, like up under the nose and around the mouth and things like that. So, that's something to be thinking about. The reason why you're doing the pattern portrait is not just to show a bunch of lines, but you're also relaying the values from the photograph directly into the square. And one thing too, it's fine to do the grid in pencil, but then when you're done, let's erase it, because like on this one, you can't see the outline of each grid, and it's really quite lovely. Okay, so there are a lot of videos posted here. Please watch them. You can rewatch this. Email me or hop on to Collaborate if you have any questions. Great. Good luck with everything.